Welcome back to Study Through the Bible, the channel that studies the Bible in community here on YouTube. And we do that through daily assignments, which you can find in the description down below for this next week. And we do it through the weekly videos that you're watching right now, where I share my insights into the passage. And if you have insights or questions on the passage that we're discussing, put it in the comments down below, start a good discussion. And I also do some live chats, live streams where you can ask me anything. And so subscribe if all of that sounds great to you. You can do that right down there. And so today we are going to be in Deuteronomy 18 through 20. And this is week 4 in our Deuteronomy study. You can go back to Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and we also have several other things and lots of other content that from previous stuff that's going to be coming on here soon. And so again, hit that subscribe button. But today we're going to be in Deuteronomy 18 through 20, and we got quite a bit of things. But the theme here that I see is establishing landmarks. And this is important. Remember, they're at the border of the Promised Land. They're the new generation that's going to go in under Joshua's leadership. This is Moses before he knows he's going to die and not cross over with them. His last legacy of leadership. He is his sermons, and he's repeating the law, Deuteronomy's second law, as they go into the Promised Land. And so let's go ahead and jump in. Deuteronomy 18:9, when you are come into the land which the Lord your God gives you, you shall not learn to do after the abominations of those nations. There shall not be found among you anyone that makes his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that uses divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. So there's a lot there. Last week we talked about a lot of different abominations, and so you can go back and check out that one if you missed that. But this one, I thought we just hit a little bit more in depth because it all centers around this one basic concept, and that is the occult. That is particularly when I looked into these words and what it's getting at, it really, a lot of them had to do in common with the idea of trying to get at the future, get at what's going to happen in the future. You may remember that in Isaiah, God says, I set myself apart, I alone see the end from the beginning, and I can say from ancient times what is yet to come to pass. And he challenges the other gods to do that. And what Satan does is he acts like God, or he tries to act like God, and he's a counterfeit, and so he can't do what God actually does. And so he just makes an illusion or uses what he has at his disposal in order to mimic what God does up to a certain extent. And that's what we see that's going on with these abominations. So I'm just going to get into it. The first one we kind of covered last week, and that's the whole making your children pass through the fire, which was a human sacrifice to atone for sin, which may sound familiar. Satan mimicking something that sounds kind of like what God is going to do to actually deal with sin, and he can't actually deal with sin. He just gives this false promise to people that, hey, if you do this really wicked and vile thing, then I will do that for you, but you never really know if it's done for you. So the second one is divination. And divination is the practice of attempting to foretell future events or discover hidden knowledge by occult or supernatural means. And I think that's probably the coverall of all of these terms. And what you have is people going about it in different ways. So the practice overall is divination, and that is the idea of trying to get at what's going to happen in the future. So what's going to happen in my personal life, what's going to happen to my organization, what's going to happen to my family, what's going to happen, in the world, trying to get at future events. And the second one is observer of times. Now that may sound familiar to you because what that is basically what we call modern day astrology. It is looking at the patterns and the seasons and the signs and coming to a conclusion about what's going to happen in the future. And so you may not have been aware. God says, don't do that. That's an abomination. That's connected with the occult. And the next word is enchanter. And this is somebody who practices magic. Okay? And, on some level, you might be able to separate the person who's trying to just give entertainment, and he's just doing some simple, like little sleight of hand tricks, and the people who are like the real magicians. I'm talking about the Chris Angel type of, people, okay? And it's interesting because David Copperfield was once asked in relation to Jesus, because some people accuse Jesus as just practicing magic and sorcery kind of thing. He was like a wizard, and they asked them what they thought about that claim, and they said that the amount of people and equipment, and like he said he would have had to have had like several trailers worth of equipment that was involved in this if he was to pull off some of the things that you read about in the Gospels and that people eyewitnessed and attested to. So he said, no, I don't think that that's what was going on. You can't call that magic. And so he may not be a believer or know exactly what it was, but he says you can't call that magic. But the magicians who are really doing some crazy stuff, I think on some level we all can see that there is some help going on from occultic sources, okay? The next one is a witch, okay? This is just flat out witchcraft. And I don't think, in today's world, this is another tricky one because we, good witches and bad witches, I long for the day to go back to the day in which it was just always portrayed that when somebody practiced witchcraft, it was evil witchcraft, it was evil magic, and it did harm, okay? And source was evil, and it did harm. Magic always comes with a price, right? So the next one is a consulter of familiar spirits. Now, this one is kind of near and dear to me because I witness a lot, and you can find out on my other channel, People, the Free Gift, that I witnessed to people who are in cults, and Mormons in particular. And in the Book of Mormon, there is a passage where they quote a biblical passage, and it's in Isaiah 29, and it talks about this book that's going to speak out of the dust, and it's going to come out of the ground, and it's going to have a familiar spirit, and it's going to peep and whisper and mutter, and they quote that as fulfilled in the Book of Mormon, which they say, literally came out of the ground, and the golden tablets and all that stuff. And I love that verse because they are not familiar with what a familiar spirit is. And it's like a self-admittal in the Book of Mormon that it comes from demonic sources and occultic sources. Because a familiar spirit is basically, it's a spirit that is there to help you and to guide you. And a lot of times it could even take on the appearance of somebody that you actually personally know. Okay? So when you think about it, I think like Ouija boards and seances and things of that nature, okay? But you can also think, spirit guide. And I have, okay, so I'll just go through the next one and then I'll tell my story, okay? The next one is wizard. And that is one who has a familiar spirit. Okay, so one who actually is possessed by that familiar spirit. Okay, so all of those, God says it's an abomination. That's what the pagans do. That's all from the occult. Straight out demonic. And straight out worship of demons. Don't associate with any of it. And I have a friend, Marcia Montenegro from Christian Answers for the New Age. She used to be a spirit medium. Okay, and so she used to be heavily involved with occult and fortune telling and psychic and all that kind of stuff. And she flat out says, I know that I had a spirit guide. I flat out know. I had communication with it. It told me things. That's how I got my information. And so she has a ministry where she's warning people, particularly Christians, about the dangers that are involved in a lot of these different things that are going on in the Christian church and in the world. And so she says, don't think this is fake. Don't think that it's all, there are people who are just completely faking it and they're just scammers and they're just trying to get your money. But she says, watch out for the ones who aren't. Watch out for the ones who really do tell you things that you want to hear. Okay. And this is interesting because you might think, okay, well, where are they getting that information? You have to remember that Satan has been around from the beginning. And so he knows human nature way better than we do. Not only that, he was around when your family members did this or that or whatever. He's been around in your life and he knows what's happened in your life, okay? So he knows what has happened and he knows human nature and psychology and all that kind of stuff enough to know and predict with reasonable accuracy what your actions are going to be in a given situation or moment or what's likely to happen, okay, as a result of that. And so that sounds like prophecy, but that's not the same type of prophecy that God gives, because he actually sees the end from the beginning, not just what is all the way back to the beginning, okay? So hope that clears that up for you. Stay away from all that stuff. Deuteronomy 18:13, you shall be perfect with the Lord your God. Wow, this is a tough one. Are you perfect? Are you perfect? And all of us, I think, if we're honest, we would say no. And you see on the screen, you have this picture of this arrow that hit dead on in the bullseye. And Romans 3:23 says, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. You can picture the glory of God being that target, that center bullseye, and that's what we're all aiming for. And what all have sinned is actually an archery term, okay? Hamartia means missing the mark. And so all of us, you can imagine, we got our arrows and we're lined up and we're aiming at that target, which is God's glory, and then we let go and none of us even come close, right? Some of us get closer than others, but all of us are way off. Okay, our problem is that we compare with each other and we think, well, I'm a good person because I haven't done that thing over there. And all of us define goodness over as like what we haven't done. And we have a lot more mercy with ourselves than we do with everybody else. But the problem is we're not comparing ourselves to each other, we're comparing ourselves to God. Now, I heard this great illustration of a guy who says, if you picture a pier at the beach, and the pier, it's a plank that, if you haven't ever been to the beach, it's a plank that goes out for a ways into the ocean. You imagine just going off and jumping off of that pier. Everyone has a contest of how far they can jump off that pier. And you can have people that can get some decent distance off of that pier, right? But comparably, when they look back to each other, if the goal was to get onto the island, that's hundreds of miles out off the coast, then they haven't really gotten anywhere. They're not even close to the actual target, but they can turn around and have bragging rights to their friends who are behind them, and because, I jumped further. Well, who cares if you jump further? The arrow, the mark was God's holiness, his perfection. And so here's another reminder. We have all sinned. We all fall short of the glory of God. But the free gift of God is redemption through Jesus Christ and his blood. Deuteronomy 18:18, I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren, like unto you, and I will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak unto them all that I command him. And it shall come to pass that whosoever will not hearken unto my words, which he shall speak in my name, I will equip it of him. And so here's the introduction into this idea of prophets. Okay, so Moses was a prophet. A prophet is somebody who stood in the place between men and God. Okay, so God would communicate to the prophet would communicate to the people. The priest stood in the middle of the people and God, because the people would bring their sacrifice and the priest would offer it on behalf of them before God. So you have these mediators that God called to, and so a king, in a way, he's under the real king, and he is leading the people, just like a shepherd, a pastor, is supposed to today. He's leading under the chief shepherd, and he is leading the people. Okay, so there's mediators between men and God. But the New Testament says that there is one mediator between man and God, and that is the man Christ Jesus. So all of these prophets, priests, kings, they all were there as mediators in between the time when God was going to send his son and he was going to pay for the ultimate price for our sin. Now we have the Holy Spirit who indwells us, and he can lead us and guide us directly. We have the Word of God, the Word of the apostles and prophets in our hands, in which we can get insight and direct access to God. We have prayer, which we have direct access. We can come boldly before the throne of grace to find help in our time of need. And so we don't need modern day prophets, apostles, priests, or anybody who says, you need to come to me to mediate between you and God. We don't need any of that. But God is establishing that with the Israelites. I am going to, now that Moses is passing, I'm going to raise up a prophet who's going to be in your midst. But ultimately, even this prophecy is pointing towards not just a constant need for living apostles and prophets, but it's pointing towards the ultimate prophet, which we're going to get to right now. So, in the midst of that, though, he says, I'm going to give you test number 2. How do you know if a person is a legitimate prophet? And last week we talked about how, test number 1 really should have been test number 2. This is really what I think is test number 1. Test number 1 that was given in Deuteronomy 13 is really kind of conditioned upon, well, what if test number 2 doesn't work? But anyway, 18:21. And if you say in your heart, how shall we know the word which the Lord has not spoken? When a prophet speaks in the name of the Lord, if the thing follow not, nor come to pass, that is the thing which the Lord has not spoken, but the prophet has spoken it presumptuously, you shall not be afraid of him. So last week we talked about if they did what they did say came to pass, okay? Or the sign, they were able to perform it. Then what do? Well, if they're talking about other gods or leading you off to other gods, then don't listen to them. But this is really like all you have to do with most of the people who claim to be prophets is use this test. If they say something's going to happen and it doesn't happen, and here's the caveat, with 100% accuracy. And I would put another caveat in there, with specificity. They say that a smart way of setting goals is that it has to have a time indicator, smart time indicator, and it has to be measurable. Okay, so if somebody's going to give a prophecy, and, when the new year hit, I did something crazy. I went on YouTube and I typed in Apostle Prophets 2019. And I found, several different people who were giving their word of the Lord, their vision for 2019. And when I say vision, I'm not saying like a pastor saying, what, this is the vision that God's given me. They admit, like, I'm just a fallible human. Let's try and do this together. Let's see if this is the direction I feel God leading me. But these guys are saying, thus saith the Lord, kind of, I am a prophet of God, I'm an apostle of Christ, and I am going to speak with authority and declare those things which are going to happen. And you know what? All I saw was a bunch of people who, a lot of it was related to money, a lot of it was related to projects that they are personally involved in, and their personal ministries, and a lot of it is just blessing, 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 blessing. and this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and you get a car, and you get a car, and you get a car, all that kind of crazy stuff. But what I didn't see here is anything that anybody a year from now is guarantee you none of it's going to happen, or some of it's going to happen and some of it's not, and they're going to just find some excuse as to why it didn't happen, and they're going to write off the fact that they declared it as a prophet and as a prophecy of God. Nobody's going to hold them accountable. Well, God says, hey, if this guy doesn't say everything he says, if it doesn't come to pass exactly how he says it's going to come to pass, then stone him. The other thing I have to say with this is that there's a tendency when people are looking at biblical prophecy to interpret it metaphorically and say it's hyperbole and it's exaggerative language, it's apocryphal language, and all of those kind of things. And if we interpreted the prophecies related to Christ's first coming the way that we interpret prophecies related to his second coming, then it would look like we would say, okay, well, it says that he's going to be born in Bethlehem, but, Bethlehem means house of bread. So, he was born in a baker's house. So I think that counts, right? Or, he was born near Bethlehem. That counts, right? Like the Book of Mormon says Jerusalem. Jerusalem is in the county of Jerusalem, Bethlehem, all that kind of stuff. So I really honestly think if God told us to stone false prophets because things didn't happen exactly the way that they said it was going to come to pass, we would have to stone all of the biblical prophets and basically throw the Bible in the trash if we took that approach, because the way that people are excusing and thinking, I personally believe everything is going to come to pass exactly how it says. Now, does that mean that it doesn't use metaphor and it doesn't use figure of speech? Of course not. God says, I speak through dreams and visions and similitudes and all the figure of speech and types and shadows and all these things. And, there's a great book called Cosmic Codes that has in the index, it has a catalog of all of the different figures of speech. And this is written by a man who takes the Bible absolutely seriously. But what it means, what God says, he means, and what he means, he says. And you should take his word seriously and take him at his word. So I just had to throw that caveat in. Deuteronomy 19:14, you shall not remove your neighbor's landmark, which they of old time have set in your inheritance, which you shall inherit in the land that your Lord your God gives you to possess it. So this whole idea of moving landmarks, what's it talking about? Well, for any of you who own property, you know exactly what it's talking about. If you were to actually get out the property, grid and everything, and the exact measurements, a lot of people do this, and they do it with fences, or they might do it with plopping a particular, landmark down at the edge of their property on all sides, and so that they have a very clear indicator that this is my property. And if what this is if your neighbor, let's say you had, a stone that was there to mark the edge of your territory. Well, they say, well, we want to build a fence, and maybe this is a convenient time to just kind of edge our way into the neighbor's territory. Well, they would pick up your boundary stone, your landmark, and they would move it, say 10 feet. Now, who's going to notice 10 feet, right? And then they build their fence, and their fence goes technically onto your property. That's exactly what he's saying. Don't do that. Okay, I'm giving each of you a fair inheritance that based upon the equality and everybody getting a part and their fair share. So you shall not move your neighbor's landmark. Okay? Very simple. But the principle here goes a bit further. And that's why I think this is kind of the major theme that's going on here, is that the law of God, the standards of God, the morals and the character of God and the Word of God, those all stand as the landmarks of our faith. particularly those core central doctrines that, we believe that there's one God, we believe that Jesus is God, we believe that Jesus was fully God and fully man, we believe that he died for our sins, he was buried, he rose again from the dead on the third day, physically and bodily, and we believe that we are saved by grace through faith and not of works, lest any man should boast. Those are absolutely core, non-essential. Don't call yourself a Christian if you don't believe these kind of doctrines. And so those are the type of landmarks theologically that we have to hold on to. But I think even beyond that, I think there's reasonable things that are in the peripheral that, we shouldn't budge on. Their view of inspiration, and like I was just saying, taking the Word of God seriously when it says these things and defending it in apologetics and things like that. Those are important landmarks. And I think at the very least, every Christian should know what they believe, why they believe it, and how to share it with somebody else. And that may change. And as you discuss it and you see something, you keep on studying Scripture, your eyes are going to be open and your mind's going to change on some of those things. But there are immovable things. There are things that your faith should be immovable. And so I think it goes into that. There's certain things just culturally that have to do a lot with what the Bible teaches and morality and ethics and those types of things, truth, that we need to hold on to and not let people come in and just kind of steal, hey, no, like, oh, this was a landmark and this was the way we did things and thought and processed things and did it. Oh, let's just move that over here and now, marriage means this. And I think that there's things that are well worth defending and landmarks that should not be moved. Deuteronomy 20 verse 5, and the officers shall speak, saying, what man is there that build a new house, and is not dedicated? And what man is he that has planted a vineyard, and has not eaten of it? And what man is there that has betrothed a wife, and has not taken her? What man is there that is fearful and faint-hearted? Let him go and return to his house. This is a really insightful passage, because when they are making the count, they counted the people and they found out how many people were of the men of the age ready to go into battle. But now they threw a caveat in there, and he says, look, there are some exceptions. And, I think of the movie like Saving Private Ryan, and how they still, even in like World War II, they still had this concept that, hey, all of this lady's other children have all died in this battle. We got to go and save this one child so that all of her children are killed. Okay, that kind of mentality of like, okay, there's a war going on, but there's some things that are still very like important and sacred. And so I find it interesting like that if you just purchase property, God says, hey, go tend to that. Go take care of it. And he, of course, says, if you're afraid and you don't want to go to battle, get out of here. And I think that, our nation could learn a lot from that. When you had a draft that, took a bunch of people who were scared to death and didn't want to go into battle, and they're like, no, you got to go into battle. Of course, that's going to cause a lot of problems. You should have people going into battle who are strong and courageous, as God commands Joshua, and we're going to see in a few weeks. Hey, we can take them. Joshua and Caleb, yeah, they're giants, but God promised it, and we got it. We got this. Those are the people I want fighting in the army, for heaven's sakes. God says, if you're faint-hearted and your heart's not in this, and you don't want to do it, go back home. But then the other one I find really interesting, and those who are newly married. And I first encountered this when I was, newly married, and I got a book that was it was called The Most Important Year in Your Life, or something like that. And, it brought this out that this was even an exemption for military service. If you just got newly married, you should go home with your wife for a year. You are exempt for a year. That first year of your marriage was that important to God. And so he says, hey, marriage, that's a way, a reason, an excuse to get out of battle. And so it's just another passage that says God takes marriage seriously. It's important to him. You should take it as seriously and important to you. Deuteronomy 20:10. When you come near unto a city, fight against it, then proclaim peace unto it. And if it shall be, if it make an answer of peace and open unto you, then shall be that all the people that is found within you shall serve you. And if it will make no peace with you, you shall besiege it. And when the Lord your God has delivered it in your hands, you shall smite every male with the edge of the sword, but the women, the little ones, and the cattle, and all that's in the city, even all the spoil within, shall you take unto yourself. And so we have this perception, and it's perpetuated by people on the internet, atheists, angry atheists, that when God sends them into the promised land, that basically is just like, nope, doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter if they want to convert. It doesn't matter if they're sorry. It doesn't matter if they're peaceful. It doesn't matter. Just kill all of them. Get away with, do away with them. And he says, no, when you come near to a city, here's your principles to work with. Proclaim peace, if it shall be. It makes an answer to peace. Now, the answer of peace is basically like we're going to lay our arms down and let you in peacefully and take us over. Okay, that's the context. God is giving them the land. It's not like, okay, like, hey, we don't want to fight you. Why don't you go to that town over there? It's not like that. Okay, God is still judging them. He's still giving them the land, and he's still telling them to wipe out any traces of their gods. Okay, but if they make peace with you, then that people shall serve you. Okay, they shall be your servants. And if it won't make peace with you, then you shall besiege it. And when your Lord God has delivered it into your hands, you shall smite every male within the edge of the sword, but the women, the little ones, and the cattle, all that's in the city, and even the spoil therein, you shall take unto yourself. So God, the men are fighting on this side, you're going to go fight the men. Okay, and now there may be exceptions to that, and we're going to see when we get in the book of Joshua, and we're going to deal with it then. But you need to understand that this goes all the way back to the book of Genesis. Abraham, God tells him the whole history of his people, right? You're going to be slaves. You are going to be slaves 400 years. You're going to be in bondage. You're going to be in harsh treatment until the sins of the Amorites be complete. We need to understand that there were giants, Nephilim, in the land, fallen ones, the products of the whole Genesis 6 debacle, and the sons of God and the daughters of men, Nephilim, the mighty men on the earth. They were giants in the land. Okay, all of those things are factors into this when we get into the book of Joshua, and they actually go in and defeat these people. But even under that, God says these are the principles, and I'm going to have grace, I'm going to have mercy, and I'm going to spare those who are wanting to be spared. Okay, so we need to change our mindset and look at the whole instead of just looking myopically at one passage and being irresponsible with that. And so, how is God calling you to grow today? Is he calling you to put evil to death in your life, confidence in God, Jesus, confidence in the Bible, establishing landmarks, and respecting marriage and working on your marriage? So I would love to, if God's working in your life or there's something that I've said that really spoke to you, I'd love to hear it in the comments down below and start a conversation, a relationship with you. And if you've just recently trusted Christ or you did so as a result of this message, then let me know. I'd love to help you. I'd love to give you your first steps in that journey. And just a reminder of our process, we do these daily assignments, which you can find in the description down below. We do the weekly videos, which you're just watching right now. I share my insights. And then if you have insights or questions, then start a conversation in the comments down below. And then we do the live chats where you can ask me anything. You can do that on my Facebook page. You can do it here when you see me live. You can put it in any comments. And I will try and answer as many of those as humanly possible. And so until next time, may God's grace be with you.